glad you said that.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's okay.
Okay, we have a brain problem, Dorothy.
No, come on. Okay, so there's one.
Come
on, back. Come
Okay.
Welcome back to Prime Women's Crazy Good Aging, the podcast where we talk about getting older, the good, the bad, and the sometimes plain ugly. Today I'm joined with my wonderful, fabulous co-host, Valerie Freeman, and a special guest. Joining us today is Dr. Debbie Cantrell, a board-certified neurologist who's going to talk about how to prevent memory loss and protect your brain as you age. Valerie, I don't know about you, but, I think that's my biggest fear, is not remembering things, not,
Yes.
losing my mind and my
Yes.
memory
Yes.
and forgetting people. That scares me to death.
It scares me too, and especially when I walk into a room and I can't remember why I'm there. And then the other day when I was driving somewhere and I forgot where I was going, and sometimes I think I just do I have too much on my brain? Am I thinking about too many things and it's causing memory loss? I don't know, but I'm hoping we're going to learn a lot about that today from Dr. Cantrell, because I'd like to know if what I'm experiencing is serious or it's just part of aging and it's okay.
Yes, and we're going to find that out. Let me tell you just a little bit about Dr. Cantrell. She is a board-certified neurologist, and she's got decades of experience. She trained at the University of Texas Medical Branch, where she served as chief resident. She's completed advanced fellowship training in epilepsy and neurophysiology. She's president of the Elite Neuroscience Center and spent her career on the front line of patient care, while also serving as a national speaker, and I do mean she's a speaker. She speaks all over the place, and educator in neurology. Dr. Cantrell, we are so glad you are here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, first question, is this fear that Valerie and I are talking about of losing our minds? I mean, how well-founded is that? Is it a big fear we should have?
I think it's a great question. I think perspective is very important. So let me tell you what I run into all the time. Unfortunately, we all got brought up being told, as you get older, you're going to start slowing down. You're going to start forgetting stuff, especially women, or maybe you're pregnant, maybe you're postpartum, maybe you're premenopausal, maybe you're postmenopausal, maybe you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever the number is. And, it's just one of those things in life, and, it's just going to happen. Well, you start out with that basis, and then no. So let me right off the bat, that is totally incorrect. You should be thinking at 104 the same way you were at 20, hopefully a little wiser. But other than that, anything short of that is not normal. So then what do? Well, maybe you notice a few things, and then people put things off. Well, that's because I'm just so-and-so years old, or I'm just this or that. Then if you really get concerned, then you run down the street and talk to Joe or Susie. Oh, I do that too, and life goes on. But now, why do we go? And none of us enjoy that as women. Why do you go get your mammograms? Why do you go get your pap smears and all of this? Why? That's called preventative medicine. But what do we do with the brain? We leave it out there flapping in the breeze, right? So what do we want to do? Well, we want to start thinking, and it's kind of like on your car. Look, I'm good if I can turn it on, and I hope the air conditioner and the heater and the radio or whatever works. But they have those now little lights and everything on. So instead of fear, when we get one of those little warnings, hey, wait, let me think about that, or what's going on? Instead of fear, let's empower ourselves. Is something going on or not? But let's not stay over there in that fear part. Let's empower ourselves to say, okay, what can I do about that? And I'm hoping we'll talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah.
Good. I hope so too.
Well, let's just talk about the everyday things that happen and what we should be alerted about when it comes to our memory. I know I've been in groups of younger people who've had the same problem I've had, which is forgetting names and forgetting where they are and talking about that. So I didn't feel quite so bad. And then in my group of friends who are all older women, we finish each other's sentences, really. When we can't think of something, then somebody already has the answer. So I'm not sure, that we need to be so concerned about memory when we all feel the same way. But I do know that we would really like to figure out ways to keep our brain healthy. And I know that you have great ideas about that. So we're interested in hearing what you're going to say about how we can help our brain stay young.
Okay. Well, that'd be great. Well, let's start out, if we could. Let's just start out with what is everybody needs? We need a good foundation for brain health. Well, it's like your house. If you don't have a good foundation, you might move into that nice, pretty new house, but eventually it's going to fall slap dab apart, right? So what is a good foundation for brain health? We have to have that. We have to obtain it, maintain it, and retain it. Well, brain needs lots of water, okay? So lots of good water. Brain does not like sugar. Brain does not like carbohydrates, okay? So a year ago, in fact, the American Medical Association wanted to call, for instance, Alzheimer's diabetes type 3. That's how sensitive our brain is to sugar and carbohydrates.
Oh,
now,
wow.
let's face it, pretty much 24 hours or less after birth, we're all addicted to carbohydrates in the United States, okay?
Sure.
What do you mean by that? Well, I mean, that means our diet needs to be lean white meat, fish, green leafy vegetables, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. But you do not want to be going and having a lot of, even if, you're not a diabetic, you don't want to have lots of pasta, bread, potatoes. You just want to cut down on the carbs. You don't want to have those artificially processed foods. All your artificial sweeteners are horrible. So all your diet products, low sugar products, are just putting artificial sweeteners. That gets turned into formaldehyde. What is formaldehyde? Formaldehyde is the chemical you soak a dead body in. You do not, okay? So you do not want to, carbonated beverages are not good. So what you eat and your gut health is extremely important. Okay, and so cutting down on those things so that's a key element. You want to sleep. A good, so some people really don't sleep. Maybe they only sleep 7 hours a day. Okay, if that's their normal pattern. But you want to try to get a good 8 to 10 hours of sleep, restful, good sleep.
10?
Yeah, some people actually will want more than that.
My
But
husband, he loves to sleep.
There you go. You want to fast. 12 to 14 hours per day, mainly when you're sleeping. So take that, say, 8 or 10 hours, subtract it from that 10 to 12, use that, and then back your meals up around your sleep pattern. That's very restorative, very cleansing for the brain. You want to exercise. You want to exercise at least 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week. And you need to do cognitive exercises every day. Work doesn't count. School doesn't count, okay? So it can be a variety of things. Phone games, computer games, puzzles, crossword puzzles, watch the Discovery Channel, card games, read. So a variety of things, but we need to exercise that brain.
Can I ask you a question? Because, I read this a long time ago about, the best thing you can do for your brain is to keep working, because if you're using your brain, when you talk about cognitive skills, I use them all day long doing what I do. For me to play a game, it's more of a relaxation.
Sure.
I'm not thinking. I'm not using my brain. So doesn't that count? Like when you're trying to solve problems, you're problem solving.
You're using it, and that's why the only reason I say exclude work or school is because if, for instance, that's what you do on a repetitive basis, now you're really good at that. So you're not really perhaps exercising it. You're just repeating. But I'm not saying not to work.
Yeah.
Because, yes, there are statistics that show, that doesn't mean I don't want people that don't work. That doesn't mean anything bad. It doesn't mean.
Okay, we're going to get letters on it. No,
I know working can be from home too. But on the other hand, retirement, I'm not saying don't do that, but it is statistically that people that don't keep sharp or don't keep functioning or using it frequently, then yes, it tends to not, because that's one of the key elements for the foundation is exercising that brain. We need to use it. It doesn't need to be something mindless. However, you say, okay, so like listening to music is mindless. No, it is not actually. And in fact, hearing impaired people are more prone to have cognitive problems. Why? One, they don't hear everything, therefore they don't lay it down in their memory, then they can't recall it. But also, it's stimulating for the brain. When we hear things, even if it's in the background, it's our brain taking in information, tabulating. What is that? Where is it? Is that something I should be concerned about? It's not. So hearing is very important. Music can be very important. So yes, working can be very, very good for the brain.
Good to know.
Well, you had me at no pasta and carbs.
No, I have no idea your medical, but maybe you're not a diabetic.
No,
okay,
I'm not.
But let's give an example. Okay, so you say, well, doctor, oh man. Okay, well, we all have a birthday once a year, right? So for all I know, birthday cake is not, your birthday is not a birthday without birthday cake. Okay, well, life is short. Let's have our piece of birthday cake.
Sure.
Let's enjoy our birthday. Maybe even pick a big old blob of Bluebell ice cream on top of it. And that's one big carb. Okay, but enjoy it.
Sure.
But you don't do that every day, every week, every month. Okay? That's what I mean.
Sure.
That's an addiction.
Got it.
I know y'all frequently I get asked too, what about alcohol? Well, that's one big carb. That's one big sugar ball, okay? Some people will say moderation or whatever. I'm not going to say totally not, but alcohol is very toxic for the brain, extremely toxic, especially for your balance center, the cerebellum. But no, excessive alcohol as well as frequent alcohol is really not good for the brain.
Yeah, I've been very convicted about that. I've cut it back to, maybe 3 glasses of champagne, which is what I like, a week. Where I was, throwing back a couple every night. I eat like you talked about. My diet consists of blueberries, salads, vegetables. I mean, I'm big on all that. So maybe I'm okay with my occasional wine. Let me ask you this, because I think this is on a lot of people's minds.
Okay.
They say, hey, my mother or my father died of Alzheimer's. Am I doomed to have Alzheimer's? Is it a good chance I'm going to have Alzheimer's?
There is a gene, the APOE gene. We all have that gene, okay? Of course, you're going to get half from mom and half from dad's side, okay? There is the APOE4 gene. If you get that gene, then that does increase your risk of Alzheimer's dementia, okay? 1-4, maybe about 35% increased risk over the normal population, whatever normal means these days. A 4 would be about an 80 to 85% chance. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that you will, but just like what we're saying, if you knew you had the gene or that it was running in your family, but those foundational values I just gave you, anybody should be doing them. But definitely if you can cut down on your risk factors, something that's going to build, that's important. If you have other medical problems like obstructive sleep apnea or you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, that kind of thing. I mean, taking care of those problems as well when you cut down on your risk factors. So we look for risk factors.
Can you test for that, those genes?
Yes, ma'am. That's a blood test. That's a simple blood test.
Tom and I, my late husband and I had a DNA test back when they were doing them with 23andMe,
yes.
Back before they kind of tapped them down on what they could do. So it's been 10, 12 years ago or something. And one of the things they were doing is telling you if you had a propensity for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, the APOE was on there.
And also Parkinson's. So I had it done specifically because I had a brother die of Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So mine came back less likely. You either got less likely, normal, or more likely.
Do you know
and
what
I got
your-
less likely.
Do you know what your APOE was?
No.
And now you can also get y'all have heard of it. The two proteins, we're talking now specifically Alzheimer's, the two proteins thought to contribute to Alzheimer's is the tau protein and then your amyloid protein. Now, really and truly, both of those proteins in our body, I mean, brain, the rest of our body, we don't like inflammation, irritation. So really and truly, like especially that amyloid, it's a protective protein. Actually, it's trying to go in there and it's trying to help. But the problem is in Alzheimer's, it keeps building up and it gets stuck, if you would, on those nerves that conduct all that electrical activity that we use. And then the electrical activity doesn't work as well. And then it has a tendency to bleed too. You can also now have blood tests where you can measure your amyloid and your tau protein, which helps you know if you've got that. You can also get amyloid PET scans, and that'll show if you have amyloid on your brain.
Well, I was pretty impressed with the test because mine said a low risk, thank God, but my late husband's was high. Now, that's not what he died of, but he had type 2 diabetes, and so he had arteries shutting down and a rare disease on top of that.
Sure.
But he definitely it was dementia or into Alzheimer's, absolutely. So I think those are pretty dang accurate.
Yes.
So,
And with your, like I said, not every individual, say with diabetes, will get, say, Alzheimer's dementia. But again, you're dealing with a disorder of how you metabolize or can handleize your sugar. And so if you're not following those guidelines in your diet, as well as, probably if you do need medication and things. But that's a great analogy. Diabetes, for instance, is a chronic illness, okay? We don't want to get it, but if you do, well, there are things you can do. There's things that, your doctor, things they can help you with. You don't want it, but once you have it, you need to empower yourself to do something about it. Same thing with, let's do some of this preventative medicine as best we can to see if we can lead up. Have we seen people with actual dementia, Alzheimer's? There's also a condition that we haven't really mentioned called mild cognitive impairment. Now that's when you're starting, and we really don't have good figures, but that's a huge number. So these are people that have also been tested and they do have some abnormalities, okay? But they're in that gray zone. They don't have enough abnormalities to say, yep, you're in the early stages of dementia, but they don't have enough to say they are. They're in that gray zone. Now, we don't want to even get into the gray zone, but if there are things you can be doing to either keep you in the gray zone or take you out of the gray zone, simple things like I mentioned, we need to be doing that.
So we could get a test to see if we have mild cognitive impairment?
Yeah, so if you were to come in, and I get this all the time, someone, as you mentioned, I'd had a brother who had Alzheimer's dementia. And we have people come in, actually, I'm feeling fine. Dr. Cantrell, great. Okay, but I call them well baby checks, just like you go in and get your annual exams, right? And they want to know. So usually what will we want to get? Well, we'll want to get a really good picture of the brain, an MRI. We'll want to get a EEG that looks at those brain waves. That's the electrical activity. That's how we function. We do want to do like a little 5 or 10 minute paper and pencil test to get us a baseline called the MoCA, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. That gives me a little baseline. Well, how is it functioning? Now, you get a big formal neurocognitive testing. That's a very precise testing. How is the brain functioning? And then I get, including that APOE, I get a bunch of blood work. Well, why would you do that? Well, this is looking for underlying disorders. Could be something as simple as a B12 deficiency, vitamin B12, okay? Well, if I find things I can fix, well, let's fix those things. So it's kind of like you're out in the country. I don't know if any of you've ever, you got an old barn with one of those great tin roofs, right? Really great to be in. But it's, you go out there and you look up there and it's raining. Great. Well, you see a little pinhole up there, but nothing bad. Okay. Next time you go out there, maybe it's raining, but this time that's gotten a little more rusty, and now you see another hole. Then you go out there and now it's dripping because you've let it, and now you've got several holes. Well, I mean, you got to do something about it. But let's try to not, when we notice the pinhole or we don't even notice it, let's try to be doing something that prevents that, just like you would your tin roof. You're going to fix it. You're going to do whatever you need to do. Does that make sense?
When I go to my regular doctor and primary doctor, I've never talked to her about my brain. I've talked about everything else. It just seems like that's never on the agenda.
Right.
So I guess people just wait until they feel like they have something to figure it out.
Yeah, usually it's a family member or friends or something happens at work or something like that. That's why I said we've got to get better. We've got to get better at, and so usually they will. They might do a few tests, but then they probably need to send you to a neurologist. Even if you're not having problems, they can do a few tests, but I wouldn't fall for the thing. If you either want a well baby check, like I said, or you have some concerns, then you need to push that to say, I'd like to be referred to a neurologist.
Okay.
I thought general practitioners now, if you're over 65, they do some kind of a test.
They'll do usually the little mini mental status, which is similar to the MOCA, to give you a little screening. They do the annual woman or man blood work. Most of the time they could get a CAT scan or something like that. Some of them are able to get the MRIs, usually not, though, per your insurance. But they can do some screening. Just remember, though, you need to empower yourself. So if you want further, or like your family history or something like that, yes.
Well, how does inflammation affect your brain?
Brain doesn't like inflammation, whether it's coming from your gut, because all those signals get sent up to the brain. Your brain is the control center for the whole body. So, like I said, gut health and that, or if you have other problems, diabetes is very inflammatory, for instance. Some of your gut problems like ulcerative colitis, all these autoimmune disorders. So it doesn't like inflammation, irritation, okay? Some of these diet things, when you eat that and then you don't have enough antioxidants, well, then it doesn't calm down the inflammation and it just builds and builds and builds. So it doesn't handle it well. Then if you're prone to things like the Alzheimer's, well, then that amyloid kicks off, thinking it's protecting it, and yet it's not.
So on Alzheimer's and dementia, is there anything that looks promising to eventually eliminate those diseases?
We don't have a cure. But to your point, I would say at least over the last decade, at least there is a growing, not only concern. One of the reasons there's a growing concern is if you look at the baby boomer age group, right now, just take Alzheimer's, and that's only one type of dementia. We only know, that means, what do we not know? There's at least 6 million people in the United States that have Alzheimer's dementia. That's what we know of.
Wow.
But there's so many of these people we don't know about, okay, or with the mild cognitive impairment. So awareness is important, okay? And so you gotta kind of focus on that, and then it has gotten awareness. But as far as medicine, yes, Alzheimer's in particular, there are now 2 drugs out there that help get rid of the amyloid. Now, there's risks to them, and you have to meet certain criteria, but there's that. We do have medications on the market and have had. They're not going to cure it. Well, then why would you give it to someone? But sometimes we borrow from them, or we might use it in a head injury patient or a stroke patient that's having problems thinking. But those 2 medications, they basically are trying to hold on to what you have for as long as you have and try to stabilize things. And then supplements, okay? Yes, I do believe in supplements. Now, overdoing it, though, or not knowing what you're doing is not a good way. I will mention, but just briefly. So, yes, so looking at what brain needs and the chemical makeup and things and what can help it. So there is a group of vitamins and supplements I've been using for years that I recommend. Not if you're having problems, but preventatively and if you're having problems. Good success with that. In fact, we have a study that's being published. It's coming out. And then it's called the Neuro Trio, and that's available on the market now. So that's some good supplements. So
what's in that supplement that you all have developed?
There's a whole list, but definitely it's a really high grade omega-3. The one that we propose is the one from algae, so you don't have to worry about people allergic to fish oil or have the fish burps, things like that. There is a good, well, it's true.
It's true.
It's a good pre and probiotic for good gut health. And then the main product is a combination of a lot of things. Everything from alpha lipoic acid to, cocamine. And there's just a whole that I've researched and been giving for years. So it's a whole combination. So used to be with this product, I really had to list my patients, and I would give them this list. It would be this whole type page, and I'd say, okay, now you can go over here and get this, go over and this, and someone would comment, Dr. Cantrell, by the time I get through with all this, you have me taking 28 pills. I'm going to choke to death, right? And so when I did, I was blessed enough with the people I'm working with, Roger Griggs, Jake Griggs, they've been in the pharmaceutical business for a long time, and Dr. Dennis Song, who's a pharmacist. He's a PhD pharmacist himself. But this middle pill that you're talking about, so we've been able to pretty much, other than the two products I already mentioned, combine those into 2 tablets a day. So this is a total of 4 tablets a day. So that's reasonable versus the 27, 28 tablets a day.
Right.
So again, yes, you can do things that help supplement, and yes, we are working on that. And yes, there is a bigger push, not only scientifically, but clinically. What else can we do? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good to hear.
Good. So you've talked a little bit about, you talked about exercise, diet, and those are things that obviously we need to take care of. And you've talked about keeping your brain active.
Yeah.
So what else would you propose for someone who, let's say you don't have any history in your family of dementia or Alzheimer's, so you don't have any of that, but what else would you suggest for them in the way of preventative care or even, what they should follow up with their doctor?
Yes, follow up with their doctor. Like I said, definitely have that foundation. Okay, and if you have any other medical problems, then get those taken care of. Okay, I did mention, which is a little off, but for instance, things you don't think about. Somebody may have to have chemotherapy. Doesn't get talked about a lot until it happens, but chemo brain is very important. So if you can start doing some of these things, if you're not, that I've talked about, the foundation, as well as potentially taking these supplements, or if you do have things like that, or people that have to have general anesthesia to have an operation, very important to know. So again, that foundation is key for anybody of any age, okay? I'd be more than happy to go back over that. If you do want to get on some baseline supplements, try to get as much shape as well as your overall physical health, and stay in that way, stay active. People always ask me about stress. If the 3 of us could control stress, we would be having this interview on our independent islands.
That's true.
But yes, as much as you can, But fear is a big stress. And like we said in the beginning, if you mainly live in fear, I challenge you to take that alert button of fear and then turn it around and empower yourself and encourage yourself. We as women, okay, not that men don't, but we as women, we're the caretakers.
Yes, we are.
The problem with this is that we end up taking care of everybody else but ourselves. So it's not selfish and it's not narcissistic. You got to take care of that woman in the mirror you look at every morning, okay? She needs you, and you certainly can't help anybody else if you don't take care of yourself. So these are just good health principles that don't get presented to you, but that you need to know. And so you do need to take care of yourself. You do need to do these things to empower yourself. And then, yes, you can take care of other people, but take care of yourself first.
Good.
Well, that brings up caregivers.
Yes.
I have some friends. He has Alzheimer's. She's his caregiver. And it's really sad because she can't go anywhere. I mean, he can still communicate, but he has trouble walking any distance and talking. And so, my husband and I go over there and we my husband babysits him while I go out with her. But do you have any advice for caregivers about how they can take care of themselves? Because she's not taking care of herself very well.
There's not only studies, but you see this all the time. And the problem is that the caretaker, usually, you don't die of something like Alzheimer's. It's the complications thereof.
Yes.
The problem that we a lot of times don't spend enough time on, although the Alzheimer's Association does offer things for caregivers and support groups and things like that, is the caregiver will end up going down because they're not taking care of themselves. They're not having that time, and they're not taking care of, they're independent. But it's very taxing, of course, emotionally, physically, spiritually. This person doesn't want to be about that. That's your loved one. And yet you can't trust them to do even the smallest things. So they really, if they get to a certain stage, they need to be watched all the time. And so nobody on the planet, even a loving individual, cannot take care of somebody. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's just impossible. Most of the time, too, you have loving families will take turns. Okay, nobody has that kind of turn. So, but with the system that we have of healthcare, there's not a lot, even if you have insurance or you're on Medicare. I mean, they may be able to send somebody in home health, but they're there for 2 to 3 hours a week, and no, there's no help with the bathing and things like that. That's not enough. Sometimes if they're in it's a loving thing to put them in an assisted living home. So that's their job at the people to take care of them and to make sure they redirect them and things of that nature. Sometimes they are still able to stay at home. But again, you have to take care of yourself, and you have to know that it's like your children. If you have children, you do things that you may not like to or want to do, and they don't think is so great, but you're doing that because you love them, okay? But that's a hard pill to swallow, right? So you've got to take care of yourself as a caregiver, but you've got to recognize that you're at risk.
It's also very expensive. I can attest to this because my late husband lived like 10 months after all of this came down. And if we hadn't had long-term health insurance and deep pockets, we could not have done it.
Correct.
Because he had to have 24/7 care.
Correct.
And there was no way I could. I knew it's not my personality. I couldn't handle it.
Right.
Besides, he'd get very angry and violent, and that's what happens a lot.
Yes.
So I think that that's going to be a real health crisis in this country. Is what are we going to do?
Well, it is a health crisis
Yeah.
when you look at like what I said. Just with the Alzheimer's, astounding numbers. Now, I said there's 6 million that we know about. They're estimating that there will be 2.5, 3 times that number come 2050.
That is so
Okay. Well, let me tell you, Medicare is not in good shape as it is. The numbers are looking just based on Alzheimer's alone. That will bust the budget. There will be no Medicare because it can't handle it.
Right.
Okay. So, yes, it is a crisis. It is something that we fundamentally need to be looking at. And thank God for women like you who are trying to raise the awareness, not only on our health as women, but, on this issue of cognitive health, that it is just as vital, as important as anything else.
Yes. We're going to do some quick rounds because we're going to be wrapping up here. Okay. So just quick answers. One thing women should stop doing for their brain.
Those artificial sweeteners.
Ooh.
Okay, one thing they should start doing today.
how about let's go on those low carb, no carb diets?
Okay, Valerie.
Whoa.
And you've already answered, are supplements worth it? You said yes. Is alcohol hurting our brains more than we think?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, your turn, Valerie.
Oh, okay. What do most doctors not tell their patients about cognitive decline?
You've already brought that up. They don't bring it up at all.
They don't bring it up at all. Yep. Interesting. What have you changed your mind about over the years?
I have changed my mind that we can help people with a cognitive impairment. We can I may not be able to cure Alzheimer's or dementia, but I have been able, through this foundation that we talked about, all these good things, people have become better. Now, they teach us in medical school. As a professor, when we're taught, and I taught, hey, once the brain is, you can't help it, you can't make it better. That's not true.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
So let's empower ourselves and take, if you would, the bull by the horns, and let's start doing these things that we need to do.
Well, I loved what you said in the beginning, is that you can still have a healthy brain as you age, as you did when you were younger.
Yes, ma'am, you've heard that term, hey, he or she, they were sharp as a tack till the day they passed.
Yes.
Well, that's the way we should all be.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a grandmother like that, 100 years old. Her brain was just as good as ever.
Exactly.
So, what would you tell a woman out there who is afraid of her future because of various reasons? Could be genetics, etc. But what advice do you have for her?
Okay. Fear is a protective mechanism. However, fear can be used to your benefit. It can be used to deter you. Let's make sure that we look at that as a warning sign when we're fearful. Figure out why we're fearful of that. But then we need to overcome our fear by empowering ourselves to do something about what we're concerned about. And not live in the darkness, but step into the light as to what our options are and what we can do. Because we are women of courage and faith, and this gives us hope. And let's hang on to those and go forward.
Good. So don't stick your head in the sand.
No.
Well, Dr. Cantrell, this has been fabulous.
I've learned so much.
Me too.
Thank you.
And I got to say, this is one of the best podcasts we've done. And I'm hoping we're going to really get the word spread out there, because you've given us such good advice. And I love the idea of the supplement that I can take.
Yes.
4 of a day.
I know, me too.
And a whole big package that I have. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, that's it for us today. Wrapping up for Prime Women's Crazy Good Aging. If you enjoyed this podcast and learned a lot, share it with a friend, especially share it with a friend who may be going through issues herself, or she's a caregiver. Hopefully this will give her some encouragement in her life, and also encourage others to get out and get tested. So if you enjoyed it, please like us, subscribe. We'd also invite you to visit primewomen.com, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter that comes out 3 times a week. You'll get information not only about brain health, but about those wrinkles that we mentioned earlier. Those are important too. So anyway, please join us next week for
Crazy Good Aging.
All right.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
That was great. I know.
Thank you, ladies.
Really?
How do we get your neuro treat?